Alright guys, so the last project for tonight is to repack the muffler. This is off of a 2010 KTM 300 XCW. This is going to be pretty much the same for all the FMF pipes out there. Basically what you got to do is pull off these screws on the back. You're going to take a rubber mallet, you're going to bang against these, pull the two apart. There's going to be a core in the center here that has a bunch of holes in it. It's going to be wrapped with this fiberglass. The reason that this might be a little bit interesting is previous to doing this, my bike has had a really bad issue with a leaking crank seal, which means that oil from the transmission side was leaking into the crank side and it was burning out the exhaust. And so pretty much every single ride you get like oil dripping down here. That was just burnt. Actually, you can see on the inside there, it's like all packed in, and like it's actually pretty gross how like completely packed in that is. So I'm expecting the inside of this thing to be really gross, and I'm expecting the fiberglass that's in there now to be completely saturated with oil. I don't know that obviously because I haven't pulled this thing apart ever. But I'm expecting that to happen. They say that you can get a lot of power back by replacing the fiberglass. Even on the packaging here, it says you can get up to 2 horsepower, which I'm actually excited to see because I don't think it could get much worse than how this pipe is right now, given what this thing has been through. If this thing is completely as saturated with oil as I'm thinking it is, then replacing this with some new stuff is going to see some immediate power gains. So I'm excited to see what the results of this project are and whether or not this actually has any performance gains to be had. I'll do that. I'll wrap this up in the summary. I'll film a summary after I do a ride and just kind of get some first impressions of like what the actual impact of this is and just see if I can visibly notice any kind of improvements. So let's jump into it. I'm just gonna tear this thing apart and replace the packing. So I'm gonna pull out these 3 screws here on the back. All right, so you can see that the fiberglass packing is just stiff. It's like baked hard. Like that is solid, like hard. Whatever performance value that this fiberglass was giving me is no longer, like probably 10,000 miles ago. You know, I've been getting a lot of comments on Instagram like, why does your 2-stroke sound like ass? I think that's it. So now that you've got that thing torn apart, you want to clean this up because I mean all these, the perforation on this, the core of the exhaust isn't going to work very well if all of the holes are plugged. So this thing is still pretty oily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a torch and just kind of burn it to get it so that the carbon is all completely burnt. And that way, when I take a wire brush to it, it should just brush off fairly easily. Warning, chemicals known to the state of California may cause death and or certain birth defects or cancer or some other weird disease. So the thing you want to do next is put on some gloves because this stuff will get in your fingers. You want to cut it to length. So you're going to want to cut it long enough so that you can poke it down inside here all the way around. And you're going to want it to be 3/4 of an inch to an inch longer than the end of the pipe here. A pair of old crappy scissors, put it on here and then give yourself about that much extra space. So you got 1 inch to 3/4 of an inch, and then you can just go and cut it. All right, so this thing finally cooled down. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap this around the core. You're gonna wrap it around tight. It'll unpack once you get it inside the muffler. So just wrap it around here like that. Go all the way. And then I'm gonna try to slide this down so it actually insulates inside the end cap here. So just kinda try to slide that down as best you can. Got that in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some masking tape here and I'm going to wrap it around about like so. And the masking tape is going to burn off once you get it in the bike and it's running, it's just gonna get hot and it's gonna burn off. So you don't need to worry about that. It's just here to hold the fiberglass in place while you cram it inside the muffler. You got your red masking tape on there. And what you want to do is make sure that the end here is clear so that you can get it placed into the circle in there. So these two are going to go together. Before you slide the end here in, what you're going to want to use is some high temp silicone gasket maker. Just going to put a thin amount around this here. That's to keep the unmuffled noises in the inside. So just put some of this around here. Smear it on. And now you can stick the two halves together. So make sure you got your screw holes aligned. There's two on the side and the two on the top. So then slide the two together, and then you can kind of feel it on the inside, but you got to line up the hole on the inside with the core that the fiberglass is wrapped around. So you got to figure out where that hole is. So there you have it. I mean, there's not really any more to it. The masking tape's gonna burn off once it gets hot. It's gonna expand the, since we wrapped the fiberglass tightly enough, it's just gonna expand into all the cracks and crevices, and that's why you give it just a little bit extra on either end to just kind of fill in everywhere. But yeah, it should be good to go for quite a while now. Definitely don't let it get as bad as I did. I think there's going to be some noticeable performance improvements to be seen on that. I'm gonna go try this out this weekend, see what the difference is, see if I can see or feel any differeces, and then we'll wrap it up with that. Several months back, it's been already, because I completely forgot to film the outro to this video, I repacked the exhaust on my two-stroke. It's a 2010 KTM 300 XCW. And the fiberglass packing was absolutely saturated, and that saturated oil was burnt to a, I don't know, whatever. It wasn't fiberglass anymore. It was just like completely baked oil. I went out and I rode the bike after that, and on the packaging it claims you can get like 2 or 3 horsepower back by repacking your exhaust. I was hoping I could feel throughout the range, I don't know, maybe just like a little bit right off the bottom, you could feel it. I mean, if anybody could feel the difference, I mean, I've been riding this bike for a long time now. That exhaust packing was just about as bad as you can get. I packed it with brand new stuff, and I really couldn't tell, honestly. I also cleaned the carburetor at the same time when I was putting it all back together, and I'm not sure if that had some impact on it. I mean, it was definitely running better, but I shouldn't have done that just to like compare with the bike kind of exactly as it was when I took it apart. That was my bad. But honestly, like, if you can feel a couple horsepower difference, I don't know, you must be like super in tune with your bike. What I did notice was a huge improvement in the sound that my bike was making. The original, like, it just sounded like, I don't know, like I had a tin can for a muffler. And when I repacked it, I did notice that the exhaust note was like what you would expect to sound like a two-stroke to sound like. So that was really good. I was very pleased with that because it sounded like, you know, rattling nuts and bolts. I don't know, it sounded terrible. So my bike sounds much better, and I think that alone, for the price of new exhaust packing, is absolutely worth the money and the time to go through and do it. And I'm sure there's some performance improvements. I'm just saying it would be hard to, the subjective experience of it when you're riding is, I don't know, it's just not there for me. It's not like those exhaust slugs, they're not being blocked anyway. It's not blocking the the exhaust flow out of the exhaust. In that way, I don't know, it wasn't like this huge improvement in power that I could really notice. But there again, not saying it's not worth doing, it's just not something I really could feel. So that really concludes all of my thoughts on this project. The last thing I want to leave you with is check out our line of GoPro chin mounts that we make. They're specific to each individual helmet. Most recently, we've gotten into making them for mountain bike helmets as well, so we're getting into that. So check these out, they're super cool. Check them out, the link will be in the description below. Check out links to our other social channels. If you like this video, then subscribe to our channel and like this video as well. Check out our podcast where we interview big names in the sport like Cody Webb and Graham Jarvis and Destry Abbott and Louis Forsley and Cooper Abbott, and the list goes on and on and on. Also, you can check out our new line of t-shirts that we have made specifically for our podcast, which are super dope. Check it out. Yeah.